Hello, this is Kim G, El Gringo Suelto, reporting from Shasta Dam in Redding, California. As many of you know, California has been plagued by drought over the last several years, and it finally seems to be coming to an end. After a fairly normal rainy season last year, this year has seen virtual inundation. As you can see from the sea at the dam, the water is now being let out in fairly large quantities. Elle and I visited here 3 weeks ago, and there was no water being let out, and now the water is roaring out. Down there there's a powerhouse which has continued to generate power through the entire drought, but none of the water in the spillway was being let out. And the river, as you can tell, is now sort of a brownish color, which shows that there's enough water to be stirring up the muck on the bottom, which has lain pretty quiet for most of the time. This was one of the projects built in the 1930s under the Roosevelt administration to get the American economy going again during the Depression. And it has become a popular local tourist attraction. I'm going to take a little step over here to the other side, and you'll get some sense of the size of this lake. It's a fairly gray day and more rain is forecast for the evening, in fact torrential rains. The lake itself would probably allow for perhaps another 40 feet of water, which is an enormous quantity. But last year when I was up here, the lake was so low that parts of the buried town and the construction equipment used to build the dam were visible, and they are now submerged. This is a beautiful spot in far northern California with pine mountains and forests and soaring hawks, if I can capture him here, or perhaps an eagle. From this side you can get some perspective on how much water they're letting out of the dam. Right now the river is more full than I've ever seen it, and there's already been some minor flooding. A low-lying trailer park was evacuated recently due to a certain incursion of water, and you've got to imagine that the managers of the dam now are going to be faced with some decisions to make in terms of how much excess capacity they leave for further rainfall and the spring snowmelt versus wanting to save all of the water, because of course we never know when the drought will come back. It's a different problem than they've seen in the past couple of years. We're now up at a vista point a little ways above the lake, and you can see just from here how much water there is and also how much it's flowing through those holes. So we're back at the Shasta Dam. It's a couple weeks after the first video I took. You can see they're now letting out lots of water. This thing at the top is not open, and frankly I'm not sure it ever opens, probably only in an emergency, but if they did open it, the water is high enough that it would flow out of there too. If you look down, you can see that there's a great deal of foam and spray being generated as the water crashes to the bottom. And near our house, the river seems to be certainly higher than I've ever seen it, including this winter. And just from a few weeks ago, the level of the lake seems to have risen 10 or 15 feet. The last time we were up here, we could not see this much. Based on my own unprofessional assessment of the situation, I would declare this lake full. And that view seems to be supported by the increasing water releases, the fact that the Sacramento River is as high as I've ever seen it, and the fact that we're only halfway through California's rainy season, and we are now, as I said, dealing with a full lake here in the middle of rainy season, and another storm is due to hit on Wednesday. The local forecaster says that he thinks that this watershed area will get 2 to 3 inches of rain by Saturday, which is not an immaterial amount because, of course, there's a huge area that drains into this lake. So stay tuned. The situation could go from an embarrassment of riches to a flooding disaster. Okay, we're a little closer to the spillway. You can hear the roar. The last time we were here, you couldn't really hear that roar, but it's definitely roaring today. As you look downriver, you can see that the water is roiling with rapids and whitecaps. We didn't see that before either. There's the power plant. By the way, if you ever come to this dam, you should take the tour. It's very interesting, and you get to go inside the power plant and you can literally feel the energy. The whole place is kind of humming. It's quite exciting, at least if you like large machinery, which you know I do. Closer, you can hear the roar now some more. And yet a little bit closer, you can really feel the roar of the water now. You can also see those leaks dripping down the front of the dam. If you take the tour, they'll tell you that the dam is actually designed to leak and that there's an internal series of channels and ditches and drainage pipes, because of course nothing this big could actually be made purely watertight. And yet closer. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Here we are in the center of the dam looking down. It's hard not to feel just a little bit nervous, thinking that you might fall in and be literally swept into oblivion. The roar is impressive. Meanwhile, on the lakeside, everything is placid and beautiful. Ducks. The majestic Mount Shasta. And of course the exclusion zone where you would be sucked into the generating equipment if you dared cross those buoys. Interestingly, we have a situation here where there's like one duck per buoy. More machinery. This obviously is some kind of an upgrade from when the dam was constructed in the early 1930s. This is, I suspect, where the rubber meets the road of how much water they're letting out. I'd love to hear these things whir to life, activate some water, but I've never been up here when I've heard anything out of these machines. Still, a lovelier collection of motors and pulleys and cables is probably not to be found this side of the Mississippi. Here we're basically right above the powerhouse, and we're looking at it from a different side. And you can get some sense of how massive this place is. And over on the right sits the visitor center. And on one of these towers is an eagle's nest, which has got its own webcam. And here we are at a popular lookout point. You can hear the roar of the dam even from here. And of course the majestic Mount Shasta off in the background adds an elegant and regal touch to the scene. This is Kim G, El Gringo Suelto, reporting from Lake Shasta, California, signing off. Thanks for watching.